Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, girl. Possess it. Good evening, ones in the chat. If you guys can see and hear me clearly, it is Monday night and it is all right with me. Welcome, 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 girl. Possess it. It is me, Tashana Burrell, and I'm excited to have an amazing conversation today, a conversation that we are calling the Overflow Conversations. If you are familiar with Girl Possess It, the wealth shop, you know that we were a 3-day wealth shop. And at the end of every wealth shop, we had a woman that was mantled for the marketplace come in and provide what we call the overflow. There was a pouring each and every day to position you to possess your promises and fulfill your prophecies, both spiritual and financial of God. And after that pour, there was the overflow. So whether you're watching this live or you're catching the replay, I want you to go ahead and put overflow in the chat. Overflow in the chat. And I want to make sure that you all can see and hear me clearly. Let me double check. Okay, great. We are good to go. And I am watching even now on the Facebook page. For some reason, the viewers are not showing up in the back office. So if you can see me, put a 1 in the chat. I can see you on Facebook, but I cannot see you on StreamYard just yet. But that's fine. No weapon formed against us will prosper. Hello, somebody. And so we're going to dive right into tonight. I have a special guest tonight that is going to be pouring and sharing, and the conversation that's going to take place from her heart to your ears. I believe that she's going to say some things that are going to be impactful. I believe that this was intentional from the very beginning of even me meeting her. I think that this was something that was ordained and positioned from heaven to your heart. Tonight, you are absolutely going to get an opportunity to hear from Carlisa. She is the owner of Carlisa G Photography, and she says she's a photographer that specializes in personal branding and headshots and maternity portraits and all of the things beauty and strength and resilience. Hey, Raven, how you doing? One's in the chat. But let me tell you guys how I experienced her. She absolutely is a woman of her craft. She absolutely is and operates in excellence. But how I met Carlisa, Neal, hey Laquinette, how I was introduced to her was she was a woman that was assigned to be at the assigned experience where the visionary commander is Ashley Record. She was assigned to be in the room, but I believe that she was also assigned to affirm who I am and what I look like from the spirit into the natural. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing to me today. I'm not gonna try to preach. I'm not gonna preach her gift or even her photography, but it's hard not to. When I tell you that this woman comes in and operates in the spirit of excellence, hey, Latondra, as a photographer, she goes beyond that. Anytime the Lord anoints or put, his oil on something, he just does it better. Somebody say, does it better. And so she was there taking pictures, y'all. I want y'all to imagine this. The room is pitch black, basically, and there's worship going on and people are singing. And then I get up and then I'm preaching and prophesying and doing a little bit of both. And she's working the light. She's getting the angles. And when it was all said and done, I know Ashley and I both were thinking, ain't no way. It's dark as it is in here. And she got this one thing. It's not no way she catching what she catching. But even in the dark, come on, somebody say, even in the dark, when I tell you she made us shine, when I tell you she made us pop, when I tell you that it was more than just a picture, what impacted me the most about Carlisa is on the assigned banner, and I don't know if she could hear me or not in the background, but on the assigned banner is an old picture of me. It was a picture that I took in 2023. It was my first set of photos. And I was a little timid. I didn't know how I was going to be perceived in showing up, even as a publisher. And I hadn't quite fully possessed who I was in the spirit and bringing all of me to the marketplace. And after that 3-day event, on the last day, she came up to me. She's so bold. And y'all, let me tell y'all something. She's small and mighty too. she like my height, but I might got about a half an inch on her, right? And so she came up to me and she was like, that ain't who you are. She said, that's not who you are. That person that's on those pictures, that's not who came across in this room. She said, that's not you. And so you need to be presented like you are. And that's so important. Ladies that are in the marketplace, I want you to put a 1 in the chat if you can feel me and understand. It's so important that when you are operating in your kingdom mandate and you are showing up in the marketplace, that you show up as your authentic self. And that's not just for you personally, but even professionally. You want to make sure that you are presenting in every area of your business who you are today. Hey, Tamisha. And so when this bold, I'm going to call her 5'2.5". When this bold 5-foot giant came up to me and said, that's not you, it pierced me in the best way. It prompted me, it pushed me, it promoted me. And little did she know, she announced me even more. She had finished announcing who God said I was. And she did all of that from behind a lens. And so I think her lens is prophetic, but she is more than a photographer. She'll be able to share more of who she is and what she is. But I absolutely want you to blow the chat up with love, with hearts, with some tools, because we're in month 2 and this is our February overflow session. She is opening it up for us for Miss Carlisa Neal. Can we go ahead and blow the chat up for her, Carlisa?
Oh, Tashana, you know, pull it on up out of me. I got my tissue. I hope I make it through. I know I'll make it through. You got it. Through without the tears, I don't know, because I feel them. I feel them coming up. Thank you. That was such a beautiful and very much so accurate intro. I will say that I haven't even cleared 5 feet.
Look at it. Look at the spirit adding extra inches to you. I said, well, okay then.
Listen, I come from a long line of small and mighty women. And that is I don't know if it's a blessing is a big enough word to describe my gratitude for God planting me in this family, and showing me in the way, and then helping me form in my own way, independent and still like theirs. So I just can't. What I do is really truly, it's an homage to the women in my family. Um, am I getting started already? Is the floor
Girl,
mine now?
listen, you can have your way. I was listening to you and it was just, I was stuck is what I was, because I
Listen,
think it's so good that you would say that. And it's so powerful. And I think many of us kind of feel that way. I don't know how many shorties we have on the line. Where my 5 and O's at, and 5
right,
and belows.
right. You know, I was just sharing it because it is a part of my story. It
Oh,
is a part of the shaping of helping people understand who I am, and that I'm not I'm not harping on anyone that is, but I'm not a hobbyist. I
mm,
truly am a visionary, and how I got here is so vital to for my audience and for my clients to know, because everything that I have had poured into me, my cup is full. And so, like you said, there's an overflow. And don't get me wrong, there's a whole lot of trauma mixed up in that too, right? Because we all have some. But I do my best to allow that part of my life and those parts of my life to fuel the way that I treat other people, to fuel what I know and I see is missing. It's there, but life happens to help you kind of pick off the parts of you that God intended to be there.
mm.
And so it's it's so important to me to have. I know a lot of photographers show up. Let me say this also. Prior to being a photographer, I was a hairstylist. So visionary has always been a part of who I am. I've always been a woman who wanted to facilitate and open that portal for other women to actually see themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because I can see.
And you can.
I
And
can
you saw.
I can see. Um, and it took me a long time to realize that that's what it was, that's what was happening, what I can actually see, that I wasn't trying to change anyone by doing the hair. I was bringing them into the fold of what God showed me.
Listen, hold on. I want to put a pause on it and I'm gonna turn it all the way over for you because we have people that are just coming in, but and then I don't think we can see them. So even if you want to have like your phone up and see their comments, you can, but they're
Okay.
in the group. But for those of you that are just coming in, Carlisa is a photographer, but I think I know she is not just anointed at what she does, but she is prophetically endowed to do what she does. And she's expressing how she doesn't just see you, she sees you. And I think that's important for those of you that are listening, those of you that are tuning in, to understand, even when you are in the marketplace, finding people as kingdom women in the marketplace that align with the king And especially when it comes to our branding and all those other things, to have someone like her on your team. But she's going to take the floor tonight, and she's going to share with us whatever God has placed on her heart to share. This is the month of February. We believe that this is a month of immediate return. So I'm believing that whatever she sows into your life tonight, you're going to see a return, a 30, a 60, or 100. So whatever you're agreeing with already in advance, put it in the chat. Put your 30s, put your 60s, put your 100s, because I believe there's going to be a return. And I am going to turn it over to her to share. And those of you that are in the chat, go ahead and again show some love for Miss Carlisa, Neal, and the floor is yours, sis. I love you. I'll be back and we'll be chatting, but I'll be back.
Okay. Thank you. I love you too. Thank you for this opportunity. I don't know if I said it, but thank you.
Girl.
For those of you who are just now joining, I have two screens up. First of all, I have my phone up just to see the comments. I have my computer up talking directly to you guys. And of course, I have my notebook to make sure I stay on track. But what I was saying, for those of you who just entered or didn't hear me before, I was explaining to Shoshana that one of the most important things about what I do is recognizing that I have vision. And I never really understood that about myself because it is naturally what it is for me. I don't have to have a camera to see you. The camera just helps me help you see you, if that makes sense. And prior to being a photographer, I was a hairstylist for 10 years. And again, I didn't know at that time in my life that what I was doing was helping women to see themselves. I knew in my heart that's what I wanted, but it didn't click to me at that time that that's what it was, because I can see through everything. There's no invisible cloak with me. I can still see. And so I have always been able to find a way. It doesn't work for everybody, but for the most part, especially for women that I have intimate relationships with, meaning clients, I've always been able to bring them into the fold of what God has shown me about them. It may take some time for them to realize that, but there's always a moment where they're like, oh, now I get it. And so that, as you know, with hairstylists, we have very intimate conversations, very intimate relationships, and we see each other just as often as I probably would another girlfriend of mine, right? And so we get to know each other. And I truly miss that part of being in the hair industry. But now I'm a mom. I'm dedicated to trying to be home with the boys. I have 3 of them, so I'm dedicated to trying to be home with them and be available for them. So in the mix of all of that, I became a photographer, which, once again, I didn't know that I was a photographer, even though I carried a camera around all the time in high school. Never dawned on me. Never dawned on me that that's what that I would return back to that, returning back to some of my original things. So with that said, just to give you a little bit about me, I did also share that Tashana described me in the beginning as a small giant or something of the sort. And I just was explaining to her and the women that may have been in it at that time that I come from a long line of small and mighty women. And I am so grateful to God that He put me in this family. And it's so important to understand that, because I've been able to see these women all of their life, all of my life. And sometimes I feel like I knew more than I knew as a child. So I could always see them and appreciate them for who they were. And so that's a part of my story, because what I do know is that what made the vision even clearer for me was being in the presence of women who other people didn't see in, or maybe they did see, but they certainly didn't respect. They certainly didn't love the way they deserved to be loved. And so it kind of made me um perhaps gravitate towards giving them love and filling in gaps for them that may not have, they may not have recognized were there. And so that translated to my career as a hairstylist and now as a photographer. So with that said, it is it's just important for you to know that who I am as a visionary and as a photographer. I am absolutely somewhat introverted, but when the Holy Spirit tells me to say something to someone, I say it, which is why Tashana mentioned that it was like, that's not you on the billboard. I met her at their sign. That's not you. Because I was looking, when I saw the billboard, I was kind of trying to put names to the people that in the room, and I couldn't find Tashana. She had gotten up, she had spoken. I was like, well, where is she up there? Because I don't see her. I'm a photographer. I want to see who I'm looking at, right? I didn't see her. And the next day, the second day of the retreat, I was able to identify who she was, but that was because I focused in on it. But initially, I didn't know. And I told her on that third day, like she said, listen, the powerhouse I saw standing up here that made me cry and had me shaking and shaking up this whole room is not who is up there. So, ma'am, I don't care who you get to do it. Have somebody help you bring to life and show your people who you are before they meet you. That's what they need to know. And the reality is, that's what I'm here to talk to you about. Your portraits, your images, your branding should be this person that walks in the room before you and speaks for you before you get there. If you know what I mean, you know how we always hear about your name being spoken in rooms that you haven't even been in. Well, that's what your branding should also be, that name. It's a whole another entity, a whole another person on its own. But what it needs is you. It needs you to not be hiding behind whatever your craft is, whatever your gift is. All of these things need to line up together, sis. We're not in the business of having a gift and nobody know about it. We're not in the business of having a gift and being shy about it. I can tell you, I don't even know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it, right? We need to redefine what being humble is. And I'm going to tell you a story about what came to me about being humble. When I first got started, now this is just the story. More happened after this. But excuse me. I'm based in Atlanta. There is no shortage of Black women photographers in this city. No shortage. No shortage of Black women photographers who charge at any price point. $99, $999, $9,999. It don't matter. If you want that price point, you can find it. So my point is, competition is fierce. And I remember when I first started my branding, and let me say this, I've been a photographer since 2012. That's when I decided to take it professional. So when I first got started and I started learning more about branding and just hiring people to help me do things I didn't know how to do myself at that time, it would be so difficult for me to put other women who were in the space, because someone's always asking to evaluate your competition when you go to start your branding piece, right? And I would be so reluctant to add the women that I felt were direct competition with me to that list. Insanity, because I didn't want to get in their way. I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be the one that took another sister down. Crazy. Didn't know any better, right? And I put that all under the guise of being humble, put that all under the guise of being sisterly, put that under the guise of really downplaying myself, really before I got started, I was taking myself out of the running. Nobody else was going to see who I thought was competition, which, by the way, at this point in my career and in my life, nobody is competition for me, okay? Because there's somebody for everybody. I have friends who are in this industry who I love dearly, and they know just as well as I know that there are clients who will see me that will never see them. And we may even photograph very similarly because we have learned from the same people. We have learned from each other. We have coached each other. We have we have shown up to each other's shoots to be assistants for one another. So we know everything about each other, right? We know what it would take to make the other fall, to make the other tick, but we ain't doing it because we're real sisters. Okay, so let me put that out there. I don't feel like I have a competition because the woman who was coming to me would never go to one of my friends just because of who I am and my magnetism and their what attracts them to me. And the women who go to my friends would never come to me because of my energy. They just don't want it. They want what my friends have. My clients want what I have. Okay, and that's just that. Now, me and my friends are cool. We good. If one of my closest friends in this industry, if she has a client who needs photos and she can't take care of them, she will offer them to me, or she'll send them my way. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Vice versa. I got 3 kids. Listen, my youngest is 4 years old. Sis been on maternity leave for 10 years almost. Okay. And so I've had to refer people. Sometimes it's a matter of price point. We're similar in price point, but sometimes she might be able to bend a little bit more than I can at the time. It might be time, whatever it is. Then it's up to the client. But when it comes to the marketplace, when they're looking at our work and they may talk to her and may talk to me, they're going to choose me for what they choose me for, and they're going to choose her for what they choose her for. Let me stop there and go back to what I was saying about being humble. To me, what happened back when I was afraid to put other sisters' names down as competition and examine their business and all that stuff, the Holy Spirit said to me at some point, "What are you doing? Because I didn't tell you to do this. You are coming to me saying you want this, that, and the third. You are coming to me saying, Lord, if you give me this, I know I can do that. I can't, if I'm not making money, I can't help those who are less fortunate." And the Lord is saying this, reminding me of all these things that I've said to him, just like I'll be like, "Lord, listen, this is what you said to me now." I'm trusting and I'm believing and I'm expecting. And he's doing the same thing. And he's like, if you don't realize what you're doing, trying to help somebody else and hurting yourself. That's what I heard. So he's saying, in that moment, he said to me, worry about what I feel is humble. Worry about what I think is too much, because you'll know. But everything that you're hearing from the outside, all this outside noise, is blocking you from hearing me. So I share that with you, and I share what I feel we need to do in terms of reevaluating what humble is, because being humble in a worldly way will keep you from showing up in a godly way, period. And a lot of times we have been shunned from being in front of the camera. We have been shunned from being who we are. We have been shunned from praising God. We have been shunned from talking about God. We have been shunned from even saying that God speaks to us. And at the end of the day, we really, really got to stay focused on what the vision is that God gives us. And whatever that is in terms of your business and in terms of branding yourself and in terms of being photographed, you have to trust that in the beginning. Because one thing God's going to do is going to help you pivot. So if it ain't right, you're going to get it, even if it's at the 11th hour. And another thing is, if it ain't right, whoever your photographer is, or whoever is building your website, or whoever's doing your branding, whoever's doing your social media, if you are truly led to them by God, they are going to help guide you through the process, because that ain't your wheelhouse. That's theirs. Your wheelhouse is your gift, but you got to be able to trust that the Holy Spirit, that God has led you to the people you need to be led to help you in a space where you don't know anything about it. If you got a vision, that is beautiful. That is great. That's your starting point. When you get to me, when you get to your photographer, when you get to your web designer, as long as that you guys are in sync, as long as you all are in alignment with one another, that's when the trust comes. And then it's got to be a give and take of, well, I don't like that. And I'm going to ask you why. I'm going to ask you why. What is this? Because I can tell when there's a hiding happening and when it's truly just like, no, that ain't me. That's cool. That's cool. But when you are wearing a mask, which is very difficult to take off, because most of us as little children, someone is starting to mask us. Shut up, sit down, don't do that. You know too much, you're doing too much. These kinds of things travel with us throughout our life, and it's very difficult to release that. So here I am looking and seeing who little Tashana is before somebody disciplined her into not being little Tashana. And that's who I'm trying to photograph. If you were able to be the wild child that you were as a child, or the subdued child that you were as a child, that's who I'm looking for. That's who I see. That's who I'm bringing up, because that is the real visionary behind what you do. As children, as I watch my own children, I see how simple and easy things are for them. I watch my children, my three boys, every day they're creating something. Every day they're coming up with something. I homeschool them, so I'm with them all day long. And every day is something new. And watching them create, watching them get excited, watching them move in a direction that feels good to them, helps me understand when it stopped for me. And then I know if it stopped for me, because I've been resisting my whole life. I ain't never really been able to let anybody tell me what I cannot do. And that's probably a problem for somebody. Thank God not for my husband, but you can't tell me what I can't do. Now, I might take the initiative and try to go to the background on my own, but God always pulls me forward, which is probably what he's done for you while you're here sitting here talking with me tonight. You have been pulled forward. Mm. You have been pulled forward uh, to do more, be more, act more. And when I say act, I don't mean put on a show. I don't mean not be who you are. I mean take action. You are here for elevation. Let me take that back. You're not here for elevation. You are the elevation. You're already here. You're already here. God has placed you here. As human nature, we got to catch up. We always catching up to God. He already knows us. He already made us who we're going to be. We're always playing catch up. So, you know how they say, meet me where I am? Mm-mm. There's always more. It's always bigger. It's always higher when it comes to God and our relationship with Him. So please, 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 if you hear nothing else from me tonight, understand that you are elevated. And it is absolutely time, if you have not already, to start peeling back those layers. Excuse me. Start to pull back those layers of misunderstanding yourself, of taking on other people's problems with you as if the problem isn't them, because it is them. It ain't you. Do we need correction? Absolutely, but only God can do that. He may send someone to do a correction, and that's fine, but we should know and we have the discernment to understand what that is. Somebody telling you you're doing too much, I guess depending on what it is. But for me, that's not a correction. That's your problem. It's too much for you, but it ain't too much for me. When I was thinking about this story earlier today. I've always been a little firecracker, pretty feisty. And when I got married, one of my best friends she was dating a guy we went to high school with. And I married my college sweetheart, not anyone from high school. And she told me that this guy said, well, I don't know how her husband put up with her because she got too much mouth. Because my husband's a real man. And I say that to say, who it bothers is who it's going to bother. You're being too much. You're being too loud. You're being too quiet. Who is for is who is for. Nobody else matters. And when God is ready for you to make a pivot from that point of your personality that He gave you, then you will know. I will say that for me, I realized that I had started elevating who I am and my beliefs in my heart when I had a run-in with, well, I'll put it long story short, my sister was in a situation that was very volatile. And Lord, forgive me, but I cussed some folks slap out from A to Z, up, down, unzipped them and zipped them back up. It was bad. And I'm not necessarily bragging on that. But what I am bragging on is the fact that I felt horrible afterwards. And when I say I felt horrible, it was because it wasn't that I felt bad for what I said to them, because I still believe they deserved it. And it needed, somebody was going to say it if it wasn't going to be me. But what I'm saying to you is, when I realized that I had reached another level closer to God, is because my spirit was interrupted greatly. Now, when I was younger, like I said, I always been a firecracker. I wasn't no stranger to cussing folk out. It didn't make me, no, never mind. That was my everyday occurrence. But as I have gotten older and gotten more mature and gotten more mature into the word and gotten more mature into what God has always wanted me to be, it feels different now. It wears me down. And I can't let it go for a few days because I am worried for myself. I am worried for myself. So what I'm saying to you, I'm using that as an example to explain to you that when it is time to make a pivot, it's not going to come from some naysayer who is only afraid of who they are, so they don't want you to be who you are. It's not going to come from someone like that. Please be aware and use discernment for the people that are around you. If they're not elevated, if they're not allowing you to help them become elevated, if you guys aren't on two different ladders holding hands, and sis is going up and pulling you up, and you're going up and pulling her up, then baby, I ain't say leave them where they at, but you better leave their thoughts where they at. Leave those thoughts right where they are, because they're not for you. And lead by example. Do not join that fold. Do not join the fold of the women and the men and the people who are behind you. Don't do that. Because at the end of the day, if we're not leading by example, what are we leading by? Sometimes, my whole entire life, I've been in a leadership role. Didn't even know. Had no idea. Didn't realize I've been in a leadership role my whole life just because of innately who God made me to be. And so I have had times of doubting myself. I have had times of falling back into the fold. And thank God, has always pulled me above. And it didn't take long for me to see it, but he's always pulled me above and gotten me to where, helped me level set, because baby, praise the Lord that I was protected from the things I thought I wanted, from the life I thought I wanted. I ain't gonna say who I could be, but I understand and I relate even to the ones who are in the fold, who are still where we were 20 years ago. I understand it. I love them anyway, but I didn't let what they were doing back then keep me from being where I am right now. And sometimes we can really allow that to happen. So again, we're gonna make sure that our elevation is shown, because how else will those who you are trying to help, who you are trying to serve, who you are trying to pour into, how else will they know without evidence? Because folk, we are human. We need evidence. The word ain't enough for a lot of people. And I, for one, another anecdote. When I was dating my husband, I told him one day, I said, listen, I need to know how you feel about me, because I need words. And he was like, well, can't you tell by how I act? I said, and I have had people say it to me and not show it to me. I've had people show it to me. Wait, the opposite. I got lost in my words, but I've had people, show it to me and not say it to me. So from you, because I love you and I know you're my husband, I need both. My point in telling you that is, we need both. Sis, you are the evidence. The word is the word. They go together. Give it the word, give them the word, give them the evidence. You cannot do that by being worldly humble, because we are all here because we believe in the abundance of God and what he has to give for us and what he wants us to give to his people. That's why we're in this room. We believe that. So let's show it. Let's give the evidence. I ain't saying you got to roll out your bank accounts like a scroll. You ain't got to do all that. But if you live a certain way that is evidence of the abundance of God, I don't care if all that is, it doesn't have to be money. If you live in a way, if you are in a loving relationship with your mama, there are women out here who ain't. Show it off. Show it off. Put it in your branding. Include your mama. Get your mama some headshots and say, this is who I do it for on your website. I do not care. There are so many people who are lacking what you have, and you know it exists because you have it. They need the proof. You ain't got to have a Rolls Royce. If you do and you want to show it, you want to share it, oh, that's all good. That's all good. But at the end of the day, no matter what, we are here to show the evidence, because sometimes that's the only way you're going to bring somebody into the fold. The rest is up to them. But sometimes that's the only way you're going to being able to show and tell, baby. So we're going to have our elevation. We're going to celebrate. And we're going to be visible. We're going to show up, not in an invisible cloak, but in the cloak of God's word. And they're going to be able to see it every time. Are you back?
I'm back and I was crying.
What you like crying, laughing because I said I zipped them up.
Woo! You brought me back with that, but I was like, Lord. I'm like, okay, so this is so many things I want to say. And if you guys are feeling this in the chat, I need y'all to go ahead and put some 7s because she completed some stuff for you. I want you to put some 8s if you feel like you're on the verge of a new beginning, because she gave you some stuff that you know, okay, I need to do this to show up. But let me tell you something, Carlisa, you have put a whole different spin to authentic branding for me. And I think that hearing you, I know you're a part of my vision, because you said they're not in your wheelhouse, but what I heard was God raises skilled workers that align with the vision. And what made me be about to cry is because you spoke to me. And in hearing you, something rises up and makes me want to be better, want to show up, and in a way that I feel like only you can do for me. You see. So that part of you where you talk about the way we connected, and I had no idea that it was day 2, and you didn't even know that I was the one that was on the banner. And I'm like, Lord have mercy, like what in the entire world? But I will always have that affinity for you because, first of all, with the assigned experience, it was my coming out for real, because I'm so used to being behind and hiding behind my Zooms and wearing whatever I want to wear at the bottom and don't match the tops with the bottoms. But I'm just telling you, you're so powerful. And I just want to just, like, if y'all have gems, drop them in the chat, because let me tell you what you said. You said a whole bunch of things, and I was here for every one of them. You cut me down, then you sewed me back up, okay? She said that your brand should show your people who you are before they meet you. And that if you are a powerhouse, you can't have pitiful branding.
Cannot.
You ain't gonna get to the room. Let me tell you something. You cut me right there. Then you said you can't hide. And then I was like, oh Lord, okay. I got a band-aid on that part. I ain't been hiding, but Lord have mercy. Oh my God. And then you said, listen, we gotta redefine humble. Who in the chat felt it when she said redefine humble? Because the worldly humble, showing up humble the worldly way, is impacting how you can show up the godly way.
Amen.
Girl, she was dropping gems and bombs over the back then. Girl, I'm trying to tell you, I was sitting here like, Lord have mercy. She tearing this up and me up, this 5-foot giant. But Lord, the last thing that got me was you are elevation. Mm-hmm. And he is pulling you forward. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I am in awe. I am enamored. I am grateful. This was very much more than what I saw. What God was saying, do this. Like, listen, it's girls right now coming in the chat. Somebody just got on and they was like, what? Redefine humble. Yes, you got to go back. She's like, I can't wait to go back.
Yes.
But
Yes.
can you just speak to a little bit, like, always being that firecracker,
Oof.
always being the person that has not been afraid to be who you are, yet still had to discover, because you said, I walked around with a camera. I've been equipped my whole life. What did it take for you to get in that place where you was like, okay, I could settle here?
You're not gonna believe this. When I was a hairstylist, okay, first of all, what made me carry around a camera, oh Lord, was in high school, my junior year of high school, I went half a day to a trade school for cosmetology. And I was like, I don't want to be no hairstylist. I couldn't quite get back then, this was 1998. I couldn't get quite the hard hairdos and stuff. I couldn't do it, but I knew there was something in me. And I would carry my camera with me to my cosmetology school, disposable camera, and take photos of the clients after their hair was done. I would be doing their makeup and taking photos of that. And it just never dawned on me. Then went to college, graduated college, and was like, I'm going to do hair. Period. I did the college thing. I had no intention on working for anybody. I've not worked for anybody since I graduated college. And I, in the midst of all of that, I wanted to work with brides. I started embellishing T-shirts, and I needed a photographer, and I couldn't afford one. And I convinced my husband to buy me a DSLR, and convinced him that I should take photography classes. And I did, and still did not dawn on me till we moved. We moved into this house 3 years ago. When we moved into this house and picked up a bin, and I opened up a bin with all these pictures that I had taken in high school, that's when God was like, oh, you've been that girl.
Sheesh.
You've
Sheesh.
been that girl. You've been everything that you thought you weren't good enough for. You are.
You've been that girl.
You've been that girl. And sometimes it's a waiting game because they stopped doing hard hair. It's back now, but they stopped doing it. And then there was a perfect place for me, right? It was like a pie waiting on me to slide on in. Right then and there.
You've
Same
been
thing,
that girl.
same thing with photography. It's just been, God has been pulling me in that direction all of this time. I've tried to let it go. And it keeps pulling me back because of the vision that I have. When I see people, when I meet people, um, it's just it just is what it is. And God has shown me in so many ways that this is where I belong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's raising up women in the marketplace right now. And we need people to see us and not compromise, and to be able to authentically show up the way heaven, and you have an eye to see what heaven has placed on us. Y'all, I'm telling y'all think I know I'm extra, but her gift is extra. I was sitting there when she said that, y'all. I was like, humble.
Well, you did it. You like you didn't do it to me now.
Yeah, I get you first. And she got me last.
You
But
listen.
no, it's I mean it's so powerful. But I'm really gonna circle back after this because you said you been that girl, and I'm like, okay, we need a whole book, we need a whole ebook on that, a series or something from you, because you been that girl. God giving you that. That's what you tell us.
Yeah.
That's how you make me feel. You been that girl. Let me show. Look, girl, yeah, go ahead and write that down
Who
because
is I am? Because who is this? Who is
that's
this you showing up as? Who is that?
that girl. You been that girl. I need y'all to drop that in the chat. You been that girl. I need you
I've
to just
been that
remind
girl.
yourself. I been that girl.
Yes.
It's always been you. Oh my God.
Yes.
Listen, you guys need to connect with Carlisa. She is also a podcast host. She is so powerful. I'm going to share it because I've been watching your clips. I'm gonna share this and then we're gonna get out of here because my kids is being themselves and it's getting loud.
Amen.
But you spoke. I always talk about surrender,
Mm.
but you said something about surrender, and I think it is perfect to end it on because you said that surrender is not just about letting go, but it's about being vulnerable.
It is. And that's a part of what I was speaking about in terms of trusting your service providers.
Yes.
Be vulnerable. Tell them this is what I'm afraid of, so they can ask you why. Because you don't have a reason. You don't have a real reason. And so pray to God in this space. Here's what I do. When it's time, listen, I be fighting. I be tussling. My arm's too short, but I be tussling. And when it is time for me to get to the point of surrender, when I know I am just too tired to keep going, when I realize, oh, wait a minute, I need to stop. The journey from a problem to surrender is becoming a lot shorter for me because I've done it so much. But what helps me, what I do when it's time to say, okay, Lord, I am afraid. And I trust you, because what we are not taught is that two things can exist at one time. Be afraid of whatever the steps are to get to the end result. But that does not mean that we should not move forward. That does not mean that we should not. That does not mean that we should not trust God. It's just a feeling. Fear ain't even real. And too many times have I surrendered and then look back and be like, dang, what was I scared of? What was that? What was that? Yet and still, the next thing comes up and I need to surrender again. But the vulnerable part is being completely honest with God and completely honest with yourself. And if you got a therapist or your spouse or your mother or your sister, somebody that hears you, truly, truly hears you, being vulnerable with them is also very key, because God will oftentimes give the people who love you, the people who deserve you, the words to say to you, because you can hear it. That's why we have advisors. That's why we have counsel. That's why we have it. So yes, surrender and vulnerability. Those are my two favorite things. I don't even consider myself vulnerable no more, child. I'm just like, whatever. I'm just gonna say it.
Okay. Oh, it's a bit of echo. Okay, hold on. So this has been. Let me know if y'all. I don't think it's an echo anymore. But this has been our very first Girl Possess the Marketplace Kingdom Conversations, and it is me, Tashana Earl, and Carlisa Neal of Carlisa G Photography. And let me tell you something, you want to connect with her on social media, go back and watch this replay and get all of the gems. Surrender, be vulnerable with your service provider when it comes to your brand, and make sure that they are presenting your authentic self. Now, if they want to connect with you, Carlisa, I'm gonna put your media kit
Okay.
um,
That's
in the chat. I'm going to put that in the files section. She has a way that you can connect with her. And I think on her intro, she also has her link, her intro in the group. But we're also going to put that in the YouTube. So anybody watching out on YouTube, we're going to make sure your link is available for them. But if you want to let them know right now how they can reach you, your website.
yes. So I'm at Carlisa, that's Carlisa, CarlisaG.com. CarlisaG.com. And Instagram and Facebook and Threads, and I think TikTok. I don't go on there that much, but all of those are just Carlisa Neal.
Amen. Well, we hope to have you guys back the next first Monday of the month. Next month, we're going to have Tashana Richardson, who is going to be sharing. She has a very powerful testimony, but this has been Miss Carlisa Neal sharing with you how important it is to be your authentic self when it comes to branding and being humble and remembering you are the elevation. God is calling you forward, honey. Surrender and let him have his way. We love you. God bless you. And girl, possess it.
Thank you, Tashana. This was
You're
great.
welcome.
Good night.